Imagine walking into a store and spotting two white t-shirts neatly folded on a table. They're made from the same cotton, stitched in the same factory, and serve the exact same purpose. One has a plain tag and costs $10. The other has a small red rectangular logo stitched onto the chest and costs $500. Every basic economics lesson you've ever heard tells you that a rational person should grab the $10 shirt and laugh at the $500 one. The law of demand says that when prices rise, demand should fall. That principle is supposed to be the foundation of capitalism. We're taught to seek efficiency and value. But that's not how the real world works. The $500 shirt sells out instantly. People camp overnight on the sidewalk just for the chance to hand over their rent money. If that same company dropped the price to $20, demand would vanish overnight. The desire exists precisely because the price is absurdly high. This flaw in human psychology keeps millions of people financially stuck, and it's known as the Veblen paradox. My name is Andrew, and I spend far too much time studying why humans make financial decisions that quietly sabotage their future. If you've ever felt an unexplainable pull to buy something you couldn't afford just to prove you could, this conversation is for you. Today, we're breaking down the psychology of status, why we're wired to signal wealth we don't actually have, how luxury brands turn insecurity into profit, and why the fastest way to become rich is to stop trying to look rich. To understand why people destroy wealth just to appear wealthy, we have to travel back to 1899 and meet an economist named Thorstein Veblen. He observed the world around him during the Gilded Age, a time dominated by families like the Vanderbilts and Rockefellers, and realized traditional economic theories were wrong. Economists assumed humans were utility maximizers, that we buy things because they're useful. A coat keeps you warm, a car gets you to work. But Veblen noticed people buying silver spoons too heavy to eat with, and corsets that made breathing difficult. These items weren't about function, they were about waste. He introduced the idea of conspicuous consumption, the practice of publicly wasting resources to signal high social status. In a hierarchical society, the clearest way to prove dominance isn't efficiency, but excess. If you can afford a watch that tells time no better than a $10 Casio but costs as much as a Honda Civic, you're sending a powerful message. You're signaling that you have so many resources you can burn money and still survive. That's the heart of the Veblen paradox. For certain products, the price itself is the feature. In a normal market, price is a barrier. It's the pain you endure to get the product. In a Veblen market, price becomes the product. If Rolex suddenly decided to be efficient and sold their watches for $200 close to material costs, they wouldn't sell more units, they'd destroy their brand. The moment a Rolex becomes affordable to an assistant grocery store manager, it loses its value as a status signal for a CEO. The worth isn't in the mechanics, it's in the exclusion. These goods are desired not because they're better, but because they're harder to obtain. Raising the price strengthens the barrier, making the group smaller and the signal more powerful. This creates an inverted demand curve, where higher prices increase desire, pushing costs to levels completely disconnected from reality. The real tragedy is how this traps the middle class in a game they're guaranteed to lose. The truly wealthy, the leisure class Veblen described, buy these items with surplus capital. When a billionaire spends $300,000 on a car, it barely registers. It doesn't interfere with their ability to compound wealth. But the middle class imitates this behavior to signal success. This is called pecuniary emulation. You buy the luxury car, the designer bag, the newest iPhone, not because you can afford them, but because you're afraid of looking like you can't. You finance the appearance of wealth by destroying the very engine that builds it. You trade stocks, 401k contributions, and compounding assets for depreciating liabilities, all to impress people you'll never meet. This instinct runs deep. Humans are social primates. For millions of years, status meant survival. Look at the peacock. It grows an enormous, colorful tail that makes it easier to catch and harder to escape predators. Why? Because it signals genetic strength. Conspicuous consumption is the human version of that tail.
We buy oversized houses with heated pools we never use and high-maintenance luxury cars that break down every 6 months to prove our fitness to the tribe. We deliberately handicap our financial survival to show that we're strong enough to survive anyway. In the modern world, marketing departments exploit this instinct perfectly by creating artificial scarcity, like Hermes does with the Birkin bag, forcing customers to beg and spend just for the permission to drop $10,000. They trigger primal status anxiety. The danger is that the goalpost never stops moving. Veblen described this as a consumption treadmill. The moment the middle class stretches their budget to afford entry-level luxury, a Louis Vuitton bag or a Mercedes C-Class, the elite move to something even more exclusive. Logos that once signaled wealth become basic once everyone has them, so elites shift to quiet luxury, $500 cashmere hats with no logos, while the middle class dumps their old gear to chase the new trend. You're running a race against people with infinite stamina while sprinting on a broken ankle. And the irony is brutal. By trying to signal wealth, you take the exact actions, overspending and underinvesting, that guarantee you'll never actually become wealthy. So how do you escape? You opt out of the status game completely. In the 21st century, real status isn't stuff, it's freedom. The person driving a 10-year-old Toyota with $1 million in the bank and the ability to quit tomorrow holds far more power than someone in a brand new Range Rover who's 2 paychecks from insolvency. You separate self-worth from net worth. You embrace stealth wealth. The truly rich people, the ones who've won, often look ordinary. Wealth is what you don't see. It's the cars not bought, the diamonds not purchased, the first-class upgrades declined. Wealth is assets that haven't yet been converted into visible consumption. When you feel the urge to buy something expensive just because it's expensive, pause. Ask yourself, am I buying this for utility or for the signal? If you were the last person on Earth, would you still want it? If the answer is no, you're sacrificing freedom to impress people drowning in their own debt. Thorstein Veblen showed us that humans are wired to chase shiny objects, but we can override that wiring. Choose compounding over consumption. Choose control over appearance. The strongest signal you can send isn't on your wrist, it's peace of mind.